History is full of stories about power, greed, and ambition. But some stories go deeper. Some do not just change nations. They change human behavior. They reshape entire societies. They leave scars that last for centuries. Long before the modern world knew the name Sackler, before headlines spoke of opioid epidemics and billion-dollar settlements, there was another family. A dynasty whose influence spread across continents. A family that discovered a brutal truth. If you can control human pain, you can control human lives. Their rise began quietly. No one could have predicted that a simple product, a substance people barely understood, would become the heartbeat of an empire. It started in small markets, carried through narrow streets, hidden in cloth bags, traded whisper to whisper. But the demand grew quickly. The world was changing. People were tired, wounded, overworked, searching desperately for something, anything, that could soften life's sharp edges. Pain was everywhere. And wherever there is pain, someone will always find profit. This family saw opportunity where others saw suffering. They sold not just a product, but a promise of calm, a promise of escape, a promise of freedom from the weight that pressed down on every soul. Their substance offered relief that felt miraculous, almost magical. And people trusted it, people depended on it, people needed it. At first, it seemed harmless, a blessing, a gift. But slowly, silently, it rewired the world. Work slowed, motivation disappeared, families drifted apart. The product did not just numb pain, it numbed purpose. And as dependency grew, the family's power grew with it. They built networks across borders, creating channels that reached kings, generals, merchants, and common people. Governments relied on them, armies protected them. Other traders followed their lead. Every layer of society was touched. And while the empire expanded, so did the damage. Entire communities fell into cycles they could not escape. People who once worked the fields now waited for shipments. Fishermen who rose before dawn now slept through days. Soldiers who fought fearlessly now trembled without their next dose. Addiction did not just spread, it evolved. It carved itself into culture, into tradition, into identity. But the family remained untouched. They lived in luxury, surrounded by wealth, born from suffering. They hosted grand gatherings. Their children studied in the finest schools. Their homes were decorated with the riches of nations. To the outside world, they were philanthropists, supporters of art, literature, and public works. They built monuments that stood tall and proud, hiding the darkness that funded their foundations. For years, their influence was absolute. No force challenged them. No law restrained them. No leader dared interrupt the flow of a substance that had become so deeply embedded in daily life. They believed they were untouchable. They believed history belonged to them. But even the strongest empires crack when built on human misery. The first signs of rebellion appeared quietly. Community leaders begged for reform. Priests condemned the growing dependency. Parents pleaded for control as their children slipped into the shadows of addiction. Farmers abandoned their land. Trade routes collapsed. Productivity died. And slowly, people began to understand that the relief they loved was killing them. The family ignored the warnings. They called it exaggeration. They said people were responsible for their own choices. They claimed they were helping the world. They insisted they were misunderstood. But behind closed doors, they feared the truth. They saw how deep the dependency had become. They saw what would happen if the world finally fought back. And the world did. Movements formed, protests erupted. Some regions banned the product entirely, risking economic collapse to protect their people. Leaders who once bowed to the family now challenged them openly. Smugglers were arrested. Shipments were burned. The empire that once seemed eternal began to crumble. The family responded with all the power they had. They bribed officials, funded armies, and spread propaganda. They argued that addiction was natural, that suffering without relief was inhumane. They claimed they were the victims of conspiracy. But it was too late. The pain they had caused was too visible, too widespread, too catastrophic to hide. Revolts, turned violent. Wars erupted. Entire cities became battlegrounds between those who wanted freedom and those who wanted control. And when the dust settled, the empire was broken. The family's wealth remained, but their dominance was shattered. Their reputation burned, their influence faded. Yet their product did not disappear. Others picked up the trade. New dealers, new companies, new governments. The family may have lost their throne, but the system they built survived. The blueprint of addiction they created became the foundation for future empires of profit. They had proven that dependency could be monetized, that relief could be weaponized, that suffering could be controlled. Centuries later, when the world watched another pharmaceutical empire fall, when addiction spread through modern towns and suburbs, people called it unprecedented. They treated it like a new tragedy, a shocking disaster. But it wasn't new at all. It was an old story, a recycled script, a perfected business model. Because addiction is not just a chemical reaction, it is a market, a strategy, a system. And this family, this forgotten dynasty, designed the first blueprint. Their name may not be in textbooks, their portraits may not hang in museums, their history may be buried under dust and denial, but their influence is everywhere. It exists in the structure of modern industries, in the marketing tactics of pharmaceutical giants, in the political alliances that protect profit over people, in every community struggling to break free from dependency. And so the question remains, why does society keep repeating the same mistake? Why do new generations fall into the same traps? Why do new companies follow the same ruthless path? The answer is simple. Because the system works, because suffering is profitable, because pain is predictable, because humans, no matter the era, always search for escape. The family that addicted an empire may be forgotten by name, but they live on in method. Their story is not about the past. It is about the architecture of exploitation, about how power grows from vulnerability, about how empires rise on the backs of the desperate, about how industries built on pain never truly die. Their downfall did not end the cycle. It only changed its shape. Their strategy became a template copied across centuries. Their product became the ancestor of modern substances. Their empire became the origin of a global chain of dependency. And so their legacy continues, quietly shaping the world, a world still struggling to understand how addiction is created, spread, marketed, and normalized. A world still falling into the same patterns, a world still paying the price for a system engineered long before the Sacklers were even born. The real story is not about one family. It is about humanity, our weaknesses, our desires, our endless search for comfort. And the people who see those weaknesses as opportunities, the ones who build fortunes from the suffering of millions, the ones who rise in the shadows of pain. The world remembers the Sacklers. The world remembers the crisis. But the origins go far deeper, the roots stretch through time. And if we do not understand the foundation, we will never break the structure. This is the story of the family that addicted an empire, a story not of the past, but of the present, of a reminder that the cycle continues until someone finally decides to stop it, and a warning that history does not need new villains. It only needs people who forget the old ones.